Tonight's episode of the BS Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network is brought to you by DAZN. The old way of watching sports is over. Stream over 100 fight nights a year featuring the biggest names in boxing and MMA without the pain of pay-per-view. Canelo, Triple G, Rory McDonald, Daniel Jacobs, many more. Behind-the-scenes content, library of classic fights, original programming, everything live and on demand. Download the DAZN app on your smart TVs, tablets, mobile, gaming consoles, almost anything. You can also find the brand new MLB Live Whip Around Show Change Up every day of the week. Getting set up is easy. Download the DAZN app in the Apple or Android App Store. Sign up by creating an account. Start watching across nearly any of your devices. That is DAZN. We're also brought to you by TheRinger.com, the world's greatest website, home of the Sports Emmy-nominated NBA Desktop with Jason Concepcion. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got nominated for some category that has like really expensive like VR shows and stuff like that. We're on there. We don't have quite the budget of the VR show, but we are on there. We are America's favorite underdog Sports Emmy-nominated digital sports show. Unfortunately, it's on hiatus right now, but it's an awesome show. And I'm very proud of Jason Gallagher, and our entire Ringer video and social crew for pulling that one off. We also got nominated actually for Courtside, the NBA Finals show I did last year on HBO, and we got nominated for Momentum Generation, which was an excellent surfing documentary produced and directed by the Zimbalist brothers. So good day this week for the Ringer yesterday. Very excited. Always good to get a little bit of love. What else do we got? The Ringer Podcast Network. Oh yeah. Ryan Russillo did a podcast with Jason Witten this week that got some press. He really said some fascinating things about why he left Monday Night Football, what went wrong, what it's like to be under the gun like that, all that stuff. So that was cool. The Recapables has relaunched for Killing Eve, which everyone on the Ringer loves. So Kate Hollowell, Allison Herman, they're going to be recapping it right now. Their recap of season 1 is up, and they'll be doing it every week through the season of Killing Eve. Cousin Sal had a 100th episode special of Against All Odds. I'm actually on that one, but that one was really fun. Dave Chang, he talked to Aaron Franklin, who is just a god in Austin, Texas, the barbecue god. So he talked to him. We have the Masked Man show, and my son's coming up a little later, but the Masked Man has the WrestleMania preview. A lot of good stuff on the Ringer Podcast right now, not to mention Ringer NBA, MVP cases, all that stuff. Coming up, we are going to talk to Joe House. We're going to do a Giannis Harden update. I haven't been this unsure of my MVP pick this late in the season ever in my entire life. So we'll start there with House. Also going to talk about 16 years of Ernie Grunfeld, who destroyed the Wizards both from within and without. And House was very excited that he was finally gone. Then Colin Farrell came in. As you know, we love Colin Farrell. Chris Ryan and I did a whole rewatchables about Miami Vice once. Chris Ryan, I invited him to join that part of the podcast. So we interviewed Colin Farrell together. That was awesome. And he might have the best, great accent week for us on the BS podcast, because John Skipper, phenomenal Southern accent on Wednesday. People really like that pod, by the way. Thanks for all the feedback. And then Colin Farrell, and then Chris Ryan trying to do a Bono impersonation. And yeah, that's coming up. And then finally, my son demanded to be on to preview NXT and WrestleMania this weekend, which we are actually going to, because a couple years ago, I realized that at some point I'm going to be really old and my children are going to be in charge of my health care and my health. And I just kowtow to them all the time now, because I want to win points for when I'm 85. So we're going to NXT in Brooklyn, and we're going to WrestleMania. Talking about all that stuff coming up. But first, our friends from Pearl Jam. All right, we're taping this Thursday mid-afternoon East Coast time. on the line right now. Not drunk House, but a little bit buzzed House. He just came back from a lunch. He had a couple beers. This is the House that we love the most when House says a blood alcohol level of at least 0.07, something like that. Drivable, but still, had a little hop in a step. Hi, House. How are you?
I love it. I'm right on the edge. That's the best way to put it. I'm right on the edge in terms of my sentiments as it relates to all of the Washington, D.C. sports, but I am over the top with the recent development here with respect to the Washington almost Bullets. An unbelievable development this week, Bill Simmons.
Yeah, and we're not leading the podcast with it. We're holding that. I want to talk Giannis Harden first, and then you get to talk about 16 years. 16 years of Ernie Grunfeld. 16.
Think about
your Ernie Grunfeld relationship. You could drive. You'd have a driver's license. That's how long you and Ernie were together.
What were you doing 16 years ago?
16. What year is that? 2003. I was working for Jimmy Kimmel Show.
Oh, you had already. That's right. That was the year you moved, right?
Yeah, that was the year I moved. That was 2 kids, 4 dogs, and 2 houses ago when the Wizards hired Ernie Grunfeld. So.
Yeah, that was
all right,
that was a year. I had 3 girlfriends that year. That was a good year for me.
Let's just talk about it now. Screw it. You won me over. So in 2009 and 2010, Ernie committed some of the most fireable offenses in recent NBA GM history. Gilbert Arenas, who had severe, really bad knee trouble and ended up having major knee surgery, and Ernie gave him a $111 million contract extension. That was I think, summer of 2008. He followed that up that summer by trading the 5th pick in the 2009 draft. Before the draft, he traded it for Mike Miller and Randy Foye to I guess, fringe starter, good bench guys. But this was the draft that Steph Curry went 6th. So that was a problem, House. And then a year later, he gave Andre Blatch a $28 million extension that was immediately so bad that when they had the lockout, they had to amnesty it. And I'm not positive the extension had even kicked in yet. And there was already talk about amnestying Ernie's moves. So at that point, it should have been over. And somehow it lasted the rest of this decade. What happened, House? Explain how this kept going.
Well, what I will say, one thing, I will come to Ernie's defense as it relates to the Gilbert Arenas contract. I believe that the architect of that was the late, great Abe Pollin. And he was great because he was a rare example of an owner that put his own money where his mouth is. He built the Wizards a downtown stadium in a portion of town that had otherwise been completely a desert, a dead part of downtown D.C. And in no small part, Abe Pollin gets credit for helping revitalize D.C. as a destination to eat, drink, and live. He was ahead of the curve in that respect. And I think Abe Pollin gave the direction to Grunfeld to reward Gilbert Arenas. Now, the thing that you would give Ernie credit for, almost uncertainly, I mean, undoubtedly, almost certainly, definitely undoubtedly, his single best move as a GM was stealing away Gilbert Arenas from the Golden State Warriors, 15 years ago. The mistake of overpaying Arenas after an injury, I think, was not 100% his mistake, but there are plenty of other mistakes. If this podcast, we could spend an hour doing every Ernie Grunfeld mistake. The relentless theme is what was short-sighted, short-term moves designed to ensure that the team made the playoffs as often as possible. There was one era in which they didn't affirmatively confess to tanking, but they tanked. It landed them the number 1 overall pick in the form of John Wall. That turned out to be just as a fact of history, not the strongest draft that the Wizards had the number 1 pick in. So you just have to live with whatever the basketball gods give you. And John Wall is kind of a decent metaphor career-wise for what the Wizards have been over the entirety of the Grunfeld era. Yes.
So
yes.
I did a trade value column in February of 2009. So this is more than 10 years ago. And I was making up all these Caron Butler trades in there. And then I had in parentheses, my hope for a logical Butler trade might be unrealistic since you can obtain a free Fire Ernie t-shirt simply by emailing a dude at erniegone@hotmail.com. I'm not making this up. When some random fan is giving away free t-shirts to get his GM fired, you know something has gone horribly wrong. Now, this was over 10 years ago, and the dude had a Hotmail address. That's how long ago people were saying Ernie should get fired. Since I
Wait a
wrote
minute,
that,
I still have a Hotmail address.
Yeah, well, you do. Well, some people do. I still have an AOL address. I guess I should talk.
Right.
Four months later was when he did the Miller-Foy trade. And this was one of the few times that we really argued about something. And I don't even know if you were on the podcast at the time, but you kind of liked the Miller-Foy trade. And you were so tired of the hope of the draft picks. And I remember we really battled over that. Now, I didn't know Curry was going to fall to 5, but you were kind of guilty of this too. And I think the bigger issue and what Ernie kind of tapped into was the Wizards hadn't been good for so long that even the illusion of being good sometimes was enough for the Wizards fans. It wasn't even about like trying to win a title. It was just kind of like trying to get to 50 wins. Is that fair?
Yeah, that goal as a thing to sort of invest your fandom in. We just want to go to the playoffs every year. Like it's not. We weren't ever feeling greedy. This is a franchise that hasn't had 50 wins in over 40 years now. So our ambition, I would say, was pretty modest. It was why it was so thrilling to watch Gilbert Arenas and Caron Butler and Antoine Jameson playing together and for a brief stint had the best record in the Eastern Conference. And Eddie Jordan coached the Eastern Conference in the All-Star game because the Wizards entered that All-Star break that year with the best record in the East. Now, it didn't last long, and then things happened in the playoffs and so on and so forth. But the bar has never been particularly high with Grunfeld. The overwhelming sentiment, the overwhelming feeling is just success measured by making the playoffs. And I don't think anybody here ever pretended that we ever were driving towards a title contender. Even, Leonsis, with his arrival and taking the reins and becoming a 100% owner of the franchise, he said title words, but they never did anything that would suggest that they could compete with the title. Nobody ever thought that this iteration of the Wizards over the last dozen years had any chance at all at competing for a title with the personnel that they have and with Grunfeld at the helm. So, this is in some respects that condition where you've sort of been beaten into submission and your expectations have been lowered. The mediocre, what's that phrase? There's a phrase. I'm going to botch it. But in any event, the mediocrity seeps in and it drives your hopes for the team, and you set the bar lower than you ought to otherwise set it.
We did a podcast October 2012 after the Ariza Okafor trade, which I don't even remember what it was, but we were both horrified by it. And we really went after Ernie, and they had re-signed him. And you said the biggest and most puzzling thing was re-signing Grunfeld. I'm not sure what the message we're supposed to drive. This is Dan Steinberg did a transcript of some of the things we said. I said, I wrote on the Arenas years, which you just talked about so fondly. The Wizards were like a husband who had stopped having sex with his wife for 13 years, and they broke up, and then they started having sex with a waitress who they had just met at some diner, and it was a very passionate relationship. And then eventually they're like, I can't believe I dated that diner waitress, but you were just so happy to have sex. That was the playoffs. It's a pretty fair analogy. The Wizards.
16 years.
Well, it's worse than that, though, because so you won the finals in 78, and then you made the finals again in 79. You lost to Seattle. You had 54 wins. In the last 40 years, since that 79 finals appearance, the Wizards have not won 50 games. Not once. 40
I'm
years,
familiar.
they've not won 50 games once.
So the phrase is the soft bigotry of low expectations. That's it. So we have been beaten into this bias of having, well, that maybe that's the wrong way to say it. Maybe that's not the right saying. But somehow
bias?
or another, this fan base has been tricked into, at least I'm guilty of it, just looking for modest green shoots, modest optimism, modest hope to crack the Eastern Conference Finals at some point in time. And every step towards that feels like, achieving something without ever countenancing the real fact that this team hasn't won 50 games and this team is not anywhere near threatening for a title.
No, you have the worst contract in the league. Not only in that last 40 years, you haven't won 50 games. You haven't even made a conference finals. I would say the greatest moment probably of the last 40 years was a John Wall making the buzzer beater against the Celtics in round 2 and then jumping on the table. Or was it like Arenas versus LeBron in the playoffs?
Arenas versus LeBron was more fun. And Arenas at the height of his powers, Gilbert Arenas is the best player that the Wizards have had in 30-some years. I mean, it's not even close to my way of thinking about it. He was at the top of his game, he was a top 5 player in the NBA. Yeah,
if you go back, he had a stretch that was basically the second half of one year and then the first half of the next year in the mid-2000s, where he is on par with every guy from that era. Kobe, Vince, T-Mac, Iverson. I mean, like his stats are ridiculous.
And he's almost a prototype Harden. He had a game that fit that era that was very much like James Harden in terms of an outside-inside kind of thing. He could get to the rim relentlessly, but he could also shoot from 4 feet behind the three-point line.
Yeah, in 07. So even you could combine the 2 years, right? 06 and 07. He's 29 a game, 10 free throws a game, 9.9. And
exactly.
And 7.3 3-point attempts a game. So he really was kind of early adopter of Harden. You didn't ever answer the question, how did Ernie Grunfeld last for 16 years? Because this is something I would ask you really intermittently every 6 months for the last 12 years that I've known you probably. What was the reason?
So I think
what happened?
He was the beneficiary of straddling 2 different ownership groups with 2 different philosophies. And so he essentially, he was at the end of the Poland regime. And so he had all of those years to do his thing. And then Leonsis, when he took over the majority ownership, the team was in a rebuilding kind of mode. So he had the benefit of all of those, sort of ramp up years as years where it wouldn't make sense necessarily to fire the GM. I don't know how he survived the past 6 years. I don't have any explanation for it. Now, it is the case that he did hire Scotty Brooks, and the Wizards did win 49 games 2 seasons ago and did come within, a 1/4 quarter of advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals, a Game 7 against the Celtics. And you said it. I think that is the high water mark in terms of the competitiveness of the franchise over the last 40 years. I don't think that's at least 30 years.
Does it hurt your feelings that I said on a podcast recently that the number one destination that I don't want for Zion is the Washington Wizards? Removing our friendship from the whole thing, just as a basketball situation for Zion, I think it's the worst one. What's your rebuttal on that?
Well, first of all, how could Washington be worse than Cleveland? How could this market? This is a beautiful basketball city with an incredible basketball tradition at every level except for professional. We have I would say the best, most competitive high school basketball in the country here in the DMV. The 3 colleges have had various levels of success. I guess maybe it's a stretch to give call Virginia part of the DMV, but certainly Georgetown and Maryland have had their successes over the last 35, 40 years. Both of them have NCAA belts around.
You're talking about college basketball teams. What is the case for Zion on the Wizards to play with John Wall's
This is a basketball city.
$170 million contract? That would be terrible.
This is a place that understands and appreciates basketball. And here's the thing that I'm very discombobulated at the moment, to be honest, because I've been in an Ernie mindset. Like, my expectations, we've talked about this, have been so gaslighted into this super low bar that I've been thinking about the NBA draft as something for other teams for the last 15 years. And creative free agency and creative contracts is something that other teams do. Finding European players that are going to come out and be productive players. The best example the Wizards have of a European player is my boy Satoransky, who's a perfectly viable backup point guard. But, the Wizards dabbled. This is the lack of imagination. They tried twice in the first round over Ernie's tenure to draft European players. One of them was most well-known, Alexei Pesharov, for looking like Stewie from The Family Guy. And the other one, Jan Vesely, the 6th overall pick in 2011, his most prominent contribution to the NBA was kissing his girlfriend on the draft night. So, this is like, when you have that lack of imagination, that lack of success, that lack of track record when it comes to the things that really distinguish GMs, then you start having very modest expectations. So I just don't know what to do, what to hope for. But I would say, like, who knows who the next GM is going to be and what the options are on the table. I don't know what it's like to have a normal GM who's creative and thoughtful and good at the draft. And, go ahead.
Why don't you announce your candidacy? I'm not even kidding.
I would never.
Why?
I would never. That's so disrespectful.
Why?
Well, first of all, Tommy Shepard, the current interim general manager, who I honestly think is a reasonable candidate to get the job. I don't think it's fair to hang any of the Ernie stink on Tommy Shepard. I think he's as viable as any of the other names that are out there. David Griffin's interesting. The guy in Houston's interesting. There is like a list of names. I think Washington should be really appealing. Huh?
And Joe House. He's an interesting candidate. You've been on the pod the last 10 years, proving your basketball knowledge. Who knows DC basketball better than Joe House?
Here's the thing about what I know versus what I'd be capable of. I argued for and would continue to argue for stretching John Wall. I would have stretched John Wall as soon as that first injury occurred, before the second injury. I would have stretched him, after the second injury, and I would stretch him now. The Wizards are not going to stretch John Wall at least next season, because there was a story that came out last week. Are you aware that the NBA requires its teams to buy insurance on its players? And the way that these insurance policies work, you get 80% of a player's salary if the player at the moment the player misses 41 games. So the Wizards got 80% of John Wall's 19 point whatever million dollar contract. Next year, he's due for like a $38-39 million contract. When he misses his 41st game, they're going to get 80% of that. That's going to go to the ownership group. It doesn't help the salary cap. It doesn't help ticket prices. It doesn't help, buying a David Chang Fuku chicken sandwich in the stadium. But it does help Ted Leonsis' wallet. So there's no scenario under which they're going to stretch him, because
you left out one thing.
Go ahead.
Don't you get an injury exception for like half the salary or something? I think you do.
I don't know. This is why I couldn't be the GM. I'm not aware of how that works.
Yeah, you're right.
We didn't get it this season. We didn't get it last season. He only played 40-some games last year. We didn't get any exception.
Well, maybe they didn't want it. Maybe a
creative GM.
No. All right. So GM, I just Googled it. So they got a disabled player exception for this year for $8.6 million for the rest of the season that they could use to trade for a player in the final year of his contract, whatever. They just decided not to use it. For next season, I bet it would be even more.
Okay, well, to what end? To put bodies on the basketball court? It's not going to be a competitive basketball team.
Can I throw a trade at you?
Go ahead.
As the new Wizards GM?
Go ahead.
You get the number 1 pick in the draft, let's say on lottery night, which is very possible. Right? It's
it really possible?
Like 9%? It's like a 9%
Yeah, it's under 10%.
Yeah,
okay.
9%.
I wouldn't call that very possible, but go ahead.
I'll give you, it's possible, 1 in 10 chance maybe.
It's possible. It's possible.
I'll give you Gordon Hayward. All of my picks this year and Tatum for Wall and Zion.
Wow.
Hey, think about that. Just marinate on it. Marinate on that a little bit. Is there any chance John Wall comes back and is good again? Or you think the ship has just sailed? This is just going to end badly now?
I mean, I'm not talking about the future. It has ended badly. It's over. It's done as far as I'm concerned. The dude has played 41 or less games each of the past 2 seasons. This is who he is. Like he tore his Achilles. There's no such thing as John Wall All-Star anymore. That this is why it's the single worst contract in basketball. The answer is bad luck. I mean, some of it is, the team's own internal assessment of likelihood of injury repeat and susceptibility to injury. And I guess you could criticize them for not anticipating recurring injuries in the knees.
Well, he really was. He was only healthy that 1 year, and that was it. Remember, he had they fixed the knee, and he felt great. It was the first time he'd been pain free, all that stuff, and
they won 49 games. And they won 49 games. But he was, go ahead.
I think if you make a push to be the Wizards GM, Stretch Wall would be your bumper sticker for it. Stretch Wall
the
house
not
in 2018.
They're gonna pay him the whole thing next year so they can get 80% of $39 million. That's like 30. That's over $30 million bucks.
So
as
stretch
opposed to
80%
of the stretch. Yes, that's what's going to happen. Stretch after they collect on that insurance money. So next year is a complete wash. And that's why the trade that you're talking about is kind of interesting to me.
Oh, good. Yeah, think about that one.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, what do we do with Zion?
I just love Zion. I trade everybody in the team for Zion. I love Zion.
Sure, I get it. Of course.
We have all these draft picks. What are we going to do with them? We just have more young players that aren't going to play. We got to make a move. I will say, though, Gordon Hayward last night, I'm not a jump to conclusions person with my own teams. If anything, I'm super critical of my own teams.
You've been very down on the Celtics team.
Very down. I have no faith whatsoever. I will say, what I saw from Gordon Hayward last night in the Miami game was genuinely eye-opening, and the first time all season that he looked like Utah Gordon Hayward. And here's why. Because he's had games where he's been more aggressive and, he's shown flashes. This was the first time where he was like, give me the ball, let everything run through me. I'm attacking, I'm slashing, I'm not scared, I'm getting to the free throw line, I'm bouncing off dudes, and I'm playing with pace. He had a rebound with like 3 minutes left in the game yesterday, 3 minutes left, where he put the Jets on, and you forget, like, that guy's a really good athlete. He's fast, and we just haven't seen it. He's been in slow motion, fear, and all understandable. And this was the first time yesterday where I was like, oh, this actually, like, this guy's an X factor for the playoffs. And I think he needs the ball. I think they need to play him. I would not play Marcus Morris anymore. I would give all of his minutes to Hayward and to Jaylen Brown in the playoffs. And I know Marcus Morris
way
won't
to
be
go
happy
out on a
with that.
limb. You wouldn't play, right? You and Brad Stevens, two of the great basketball minds. You wouldn't play Marcus Morris anymore.
He plays 30 minutes a game, and they're painful.
Yeah,
he was good for 2 months. He's been bad.
Because he's bad. That's why.
I will, but if you go
here's
through
the thing, though, like we're old enough at this stage of our lives that we should have each and every time that we compare notes this season on the Celtics tap the brakes and put a caveat on the Celtics' ultimate fortunes, because it was so apparent that Hayward was not ready. He's finally starting to get there. That's totally reasonable. The dude's leg broke in half. I mean, his ankle almost fell off his body, and that's how long it takes. Like, this is how long it took. It took a whole season for the leg to get healthy, and then it took a whole season for him to play basketball in the best league on the planet at a competitive level and feel comfortable again. And right now is the time. The only time that matters is right now. So, the timing's worked out. Maybe this was the plan all along, right?
I think this is what Stevens was hoping for. I think he was hoping, I'm going to keep playing him. I'm going to keep playing him. I'm going to keep playing him. I'm not going to lose confidence in him. He actually cratered a little after the All-Star break, and it seemed like it was even making it worse than where we were before. But what we saw in the Miami game is who he is who they signed for $30 million a year, a guy who can slash, who his game is 3-point shots, slash, get to the free throw line, slash and kickouts. That's what he does. He's really good at it. Using picks, go to the basket hard, either go to the rim or kick it out. He had 12 free throw attempts last night, House. I mean, it's like signing a new player right back.
Yeah, that's like signing a new player right before the playoffs.
Feels like it. So if you go through quickly, and I want to talk about MVP in a second, but if you go through all the playoff teams, he's the biggest X factor of anyone in the top 5 East teams. I kind of know what I have with Milwaukee, with whether or not if Brogdon can come back in time for round 2. Toronto,
I'm rooting for it.
Toronto, we know what we have. Philly, we know what we have for better and worse. And, that like Trae Young torched them the other night. And this is what I said to you when they traded for Harris. I felt like they were leaving themselves really vulnerable against any team that had a shifty playmaking point guard, because I just don't think they have anybody on their roster that can guard somebody like that. Now, they might get through the entire East without ever playing a guy like that. But it's worth mentioning that that's a real hole for them.
And the fact that guy is Kyrie. That's the only guy that fits that bill that's in front of him.
Right. So if they see Kyrie and the Celtics have figured it out, they're not going to be able to guard him. Now, on the flip side, I don't know who he guards on Philly. Indiana, we know what we have at this point. You go through to the other side, Golden State, Denver, Houston, Portland, Utah, the Clips. OKC is the only team I don't have a feel for right now in the top 8 in the West, just because it doesn't seem like Paul George is healthy. But Hayward is the only guy in either conference that is just a fucking X factor. Because if he gets his shit together, that's gonna push the Celtics team up a notch. And the other thing is when he does well, and it's weird because it's been such like a me first team and the chemistry has been so up and down. But when he does well, it really does affect them in a positive way. Like it's such a good story. They're really rooting for him, and he has this effect of like, he'll make a couple shots, he'll make a drive, and the team kind of feels like a team, which it doesn't.
Well,
doesn't always.
That's better than Kyrie, the self-appointed leader, out there trying to tell guys what to do with all of his basketball eminence and all of his leadership chops.
I don't want to talk about Kyrie. All right. Hey, let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about our friends at Bud Light. They're keeping it real by putting an ingredients label on their packaging. Brewed with hops, barley, water, and rice. No corn syrup, no preservatives, no artificial flavors. You know who else is keeping it real? Joe House. How many Bud Lights do you have at lunch?
I'm only confessing to 3. I mean,
3.
If we're keeping the blood alcohol content level to 0.07, I think 3 is in that neighborhood. Over the course of
a couple hours, you used a ride-sharing service. You're doing great.
There you go. Who's there? Like a 90-minute lunch. Exactly. Come on.
You know who else is keeping it real? I've been rewatching Game of Thrones.
Oh, wow.
I'm through the 3rd season. Daenerys, I would follow her into the fire. What a leader. Really, what she pulled off. She meets Drago, somehow pulls off these dragon eggs, has 3 dragons, goes into this place, gets a whole army behind her, just keeps taking stuff. I'd follow her. I'd follow Daenerys. She's keeping it real. Bud Light reminding you to enjoy responsibly and keep it real. And we should also mention, we did a whole thing about we did a Callaway Par 3 event. First, the 101st Ringer Invitational. It was you versus me versus Scarface. We battled on the Par 9, which was the famous Par 9 from Swingers, the movie with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau.
9-hole Par 3. 9-hole Par 3 in Los Feliz. Is that how you say it? Feliz? How do you say Los Feliz?
Los Feliz. So I don't want to spoil it, but it's on the Ringer YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Ringer. And you can watch me and House play golf. You can see House with one of the weirdest putting stances ever.
Well, that's the problem. I had a brand new putter. It was the first time I touched that putter. I hadn't made it mine yet. It was a first date between me and that putter. I had not. She was putting up all the defenses. She's not giving up 3-footers, that new putter of mine. She looked at me like, well, look, let's see. Let's get to know each other a little bit better. There's a mutual attraction, sure. But it was a first date. She was not giving up any of that sweetness. She did not give up any of that sweetness, Bill Simmons.
So now she's knocking home 12-footers for you. You can watch us play.
She's in the bag. Believe that.
I made a nice putt off the fringe. Scarface made a couple great shots. But anyway, you can watch all that on there. And don't forget about the Callaway, the Epic Flash Driver, which has changed my life. And don't forget, speaking of that, Fairway Rollin' presented by Callaway, where we did some Masters predictions heading into next week. We're going to have pods next week. We're going to have a pod Sunday night of the Masters, right? Right after it's over, you're doing a pod.
Oh, yeah. We're going to give out some immediate conclusions.
Yeah, and you're going to give out winners is what you're going to do on early in the week on Fairway Rollin'. So
yeah, that's next week. I think we have 2 pods coming up next week on Fairway Rollin'. A variety of guests, a variety of input. We're going to try and give out some winners. You got it.
Great. Okay. All right. MVP check-in. So we're at the 78 to 79 game mark, and I still don't know who my MVP is, but you have decided on yours. Who is it, House?
I haven't decided. You sent me a note saying you needed to decide. I'm here to tell you I haven't decided. I will say this. It has tightened up considerably since the last time we talked, which I think was just a week ago. The fact that Houston keeps on winning, they jumped over that 50-win threshold, which is to me an absolute must-have requirement. The only incident in which we had a team with an MVP without 50 wins in the last couple decades here was that awful Russell Westbrook debacle. Yeah. And that team still has won all of 2 playoff games since Kevin Durant, hasn't got out of the first round of the playoffs. And I think maybe they won 3 playoff games since Durant left. But in any event, the way that Houston is playing and his continued excellence, and I will say, I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of research, start reading some stuff. Matt Moore of the Action Network did an incredible breakdown of the season that Harden has had. There are some stunning statistics that James Harden has achieved this year, both like big picture headline things like the second most points of the last 50 years in terms of point average. But also every advanced metric on the offensive side, he's first in value over replacement player. That's the Basketball Reference one. First in offensive box plus minus. First in win shares. First in offensive win shares. First in real plus minus. Second in real plus minus. Second in PER. Like every advanced analytic loves him. The ISO game that he has in terms of the quantity of ISO, that is that step back jumper from 3. The quantity of those and his efficiency at that is literally unprecedented. No other human being has ever done it. His scoring in the month of January is the most in the history of the NBA. Like he's done incredible things. The funny thing is, and we talked about this last week, he was on the team that started off slowly at the beginning of the season and was grossly underperforming. Like he was playing those games. He wasn't hurt. In fact, nobody was hurt at the beginning of the season on Houston. Yeah. They just sucked for a while.
No, he missed 3 games.
And but then he kind of like just took things over himself. And then they did have a couple injuries. Capella was out for a bit. Chris Paul, the predictable Chris Paul injury occurred. And he's getting credit, I think, at the moment, and he deserves it for single-handedly saving their season and putting them right back up to the very upper echelon of the West. The problem I'm having is Giannis should be the defensive player of the year. Like,
yeah,
he's one of the top 2 or 3 for defensive player of the year, and Giannis's offensive resume is impeccable as well. So I just don't know which way to go. How do you reward the sustained excellence of Harden? So do you give Harden the MVP this year to make up for him being cheated out of it in 2017? And by some metrics, his 2017 season was better, and Houston has been successful. Or do we reward the new guy on the scene? Milwaukee's going to end the season with the best record in the NBA. Their point differential is the best in the NBA. He's their best player. Shaq said this morning that Giannis is better than him, better than Shaq at the same age. I don't know what to do.
So you mentioned Harden, and he was on the team. The worst record they had, I think, was 8-14. Since that's
a bad record. Houston's not supposed to be 8-14 at any point.
It wasn't, and they had Carmelo was involved, and they some dumb shit. It took a while for them to kind of figure it out. 53 games from the point that they were 8-14. I think they were like 39-14 in these games, something like that. 40-13, 39-14. So the next 53 games after they fell to 8-14, he averaged 39 points a game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 44, 36, 89 were his shooting splits, averaged 14 threes a game, averaged 11.8 free throws a game. Only 4.6 turnovers somehow, even though he had the ball like all the time, and really wasn't playing with a lot of above average players. As you said, Chris Paul was out for a little while. Capello missed a few weeks, but they signed Austin Rivers off the scrap heap. They traded for Fareed, who hadn't played for 2 years. PJ Tucker was really like his best day-to-day teammate for 6 months, who will never make an all-star team. And he was able to just fashion this contender out of his own skills. And he's going to get to, let's see, they are 51-28. So they're 53-54 wins, which is a fair win total, I think, for the MVP. Now, the flip side with the case for Giannis, I'm glad you mentioned Shaq, because I've been comparing Giannis and Shaq this whole year. I just feel like Giannis is Shaq. They have nothing really in common, and you had a lot of things in common, just like unbelievable freak athletes, around the rim, unstoppable. Just when you're in the building with them, it just feels like a unique experience. Their stats are very similar. I think Shaq's MVP season, his per 36, and Giannis's per 36 are basically the same. And then he's a much better defensive player, I think, than Shaq ever was. And I'm not sure his team is that great. I know they have the best point differential and the best advanced metrics. They're going to win the most games. But a lot of the guys he's playing with are people that anybody could have had, right? Like the Wizards could have traded for Bledsoe this summer. Brook Lopez, anybody could have had. Ilyasova was available. Chris Middleton is really, the only other all-star caliber player. He hasn't been lights out this season. He struggled the first half of the season. He's been better since. But it's not like he's playing with the 86 Celtics. So from a supporting cast standpoint, Chris Paul is probably better than any teammate Giannis has. I think Giannis's team fits better. Houston's done a better job of fitting the right kind of team around Harden. And I think it's dead even. I think that I said this, I think last week. I think they're two awesome MVP campaigns. Like there is no loser. We just, for whatever reason, we have a couple great choices. And we had this, there's been years like this before, like 1987, Magic won the MVP. Larry Bird had his best season he had of his entire career. He had just won 3 MVPs and did not deserve the MVP that year because of everything Magic did. And then Jordan, I think, averaged like 37 a game that year. And then somebody else had a case too. Like sometimes we just have years where there's more than one MVP candidate. So I'm with you. I think it's got to come down to the wire. I want to wait all 82 games. I want to see how many games everyone wins. I want to really look at the total points for James Harden. Where is he going to end up for points per game? You mentioned that this is like the second highest point per game average anyone's had other than Jordan. I think that matters. I also think, if we're getting a little philosophical, you and I love the MVP. We argue about this every year. I did a whole book where I had a whole MVP chapter about trying to rectify the MVP travesties. If you haven't read the book of basketball, check that out. I think it matters if something significant happened during the MVP season. And in this case, we had two significant things, right? Giannis became the Shaq for this generation. He became Shaq 2.0 or Shaq, futuristic Shaq, whatever you want to call it. Not to mention the best story the league has, like from where he grew up and all that stuff. And how he got to the league and, how he grew. They draft him. He grows 3 inches. That's one of the things when people talk about, this team could have picked Giannis. That team could have picked Giannis. I did that draft. Giannis was 6'9". Now he's 7 feet. I'm pretty sure he would have gone higher than the 14th pick or whatever if people knew he was going to grow to become 7 feet, right, House? I mean, that seems kind of important.
For sure that, but it's also like a sign of, it's more art than science, the NBA draft, because who knows what kind of baggage he's bringing over from his experience. He hasn't played any basketball. Who knows whether or not it's going to make sense for him. You can't guess at what his work ethic is going to be. It could be it turned out to be incredible baggage. Like the stories of him locking himself in the gym where at the convent, his first year of the season, and it turned, him not knowing anybody and not really having any friends, the way that he processed that because of the kind of guy he is, he turned all of that energy, all that free time into trying to become the best basketball player he could be, and God blessed him with an incredible, body and gifts for the current version of this NBA. So, that good on Milwaukee for taking that risk.
And he has the work ethic, which you just never know. There's a lot of luck involved with the pick, but they've done everything right by him since he showed up, and he's done everything right. And it really sucks that he might not win the MVP because he deserves to win it. Then you look at Harden. We're talking about one of the most offensively significant seasons of the last 50 plus years. And somebody who now symbolizes where the NBA has gone, what people value. He's basically created this new form of offense that I look at somebody like RJ Barrett on Duke, who I now think is underrated. If you put him in this style offense that Houston has and you surrounded him with shooters, I actually think he could be really, really good. I think part of the problem with Duke was they didn't have the shooters. But, if Harden was surrounded by people who couldn't shoot, he would not be putting up these stats. And I think he's kind of reframed how I thought about what's the best way to put a team together, because we've had guys with individual skills like this before. He's been the best and most efficient version of it since Jordan. But it also really helps that they have continually put guys around him that make sense with how he's playing. Now, a lot of people don't like it. Like Don McLean, the Clippers announcer, was having a hissy fit this week when the Clippers were just getting killed by the Rockets. And he's basically saying, this isn't basketball. I don't like this. I can't say I love it. At the same time, I really respect how talented he is in his footwork. And also, I really respect how he's gotten better on defense. He's not like, Jordan in the early 90s, but he's way more active. He's in much better shape, and he's getting his hand on a lot of balls. And he's averaging two steals a game.
And he's high up there. Yeah, right.
Two steals a game, House, which, I don't know. That means you're moving around. You're trying. I don't know if he's a lockdown guy, but, hey, you know what I did? I was researching this. Did you know that he was on Oklahoma City? They traded him. Did you know that? They made the finals in 2012. They had, listen to this team, House, Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. They're all on the same team with Serge Ibaka. And then they decided they were going to trade Harden. Did you know that?
I'm too drunk to play along. All I can do is laugh. It's too funny. It's too funny.
So what do you think?
It's never not funny.
You're 52% Harden, 48% Giannis. It sounds like 55, 45.
I'm 50.1% Harden, 49.9% Giannis, and the only distinguishing factor is the fact that Harden was cheated in 2017, and Giannis should have the next, knocking on wood. You hear me knocking on wood here? He should have at least the next 12 years to win 6 MVPs. And I think, you know the basketball writers better than I do. The folks, the guys and gals that have votes, the basketball media, them better than I do. I feel like, just from an observational standpoint, they're going to reward the OG. There will be a slight preference for the OG in Harden, just because he's older, and folks will take notice of Giannis and say, this dude has nothing but MVP staring at him in the future. He's going to get all of his coming up. That's the only hair I can split here.
Last 4 years for Harden: 31 a game, 9 assists, 6.5 rebounds. It's honestly one of the best 4-year stretches we've had by an offensive player. It's on the short list of, you're talking Bird in the mid 80s. You're talking whatever 4-year Magic stretch you want to do. Jordan, obviously, Will Chamberlain, Kareem. We're talking about this is a short list of prowess that I'm not even sure Durant is on.
Well, let me ask you this. This is the other thing the other way I was trying to split this hair is, as I'm sitting here today, who do I think will lead their team further in the playoffs? And I can't even come up with a good answer for that. The East is wide open, but I don't know that necessarily helps Milwaukee, because I think Milwaukee could definitely lose to Toronto, definitely lose to the Celtics, and maybe lose to the Sixers. And Houston, depending on the matchup, like, what if they get the Utah in the first round? And I think it's set up that way right now. Like, I'd be very nervous playing Utah right now.
That's the one team, just because they have the rim protector, which screws it up a little bit, plus the Donovan Mitchell hot streak potential. I like the way Utah's playing right now.
So I don't know if that cuts one way or the other. It's another like 50-50 thing to me between Giannis and Harden. I'm just trying to come up with categories to distinguish them, and I'm just not getting anywhere with it.
Well, I guess. So we had the All-Star game, right? Giannis is against LeBron. They're picking teams. Harden didn't go until like the 7th pick. Remember that? That was weird.
That's not weird. He
weird.
Wants to play with the guy that shoots every time, even if he makes it. You still want to play with guys that you're going to have fun with.
So then that should be advantage Giannis.
Okay, that's well. If you get a vote, so you're splitting hairs, and if one of your criteria for the MVP of the National Basketball Association is which guy would I more like to play with, you're, by all means, please vote on that basis.
Yeah, I'm going to I need to marinate on this for another week. I'll have an answer next week. I got the ballot, I think, yesterday. There's also the LeBron James, whether he should be third team All-NBA or not question, which 55 games on a losing team, I just feel like it might be time to send him packing.
What's the point? Why would you reward? What distinguishes LeBron's performance this year?
Well, the problem is, if Aldridge is a center, which he's played like 85% of his games, he's been at the center spot, so you can't put him at forward. There's really no 6 forward to put in instead of LeBron. You're looking at people like Gallinari. And I don't feel about that. Yeah.
No chance.
I'm telling you, it drops off fast.
So you're stuck in another one of these silly, because of the categories of position, a silly outcome is going to be produced.
Yeah, I mean, really, it would be easier if we could put Beal at forward. That would be easier, but he's been playing guard,
Well, no, and he's in the East. Are you going to vote Bradley Beal onto your All NBA third team?
I don't think so. I think I have to stick to, if I'm not voting LeBron because he's on a losing team, and he didn't play enough games, then I have to carry that across the board. So I got to figure that out. What's weird is Kyrie is probably a second team All-NBA, and I can't believe I'm saying that because he's been one of the most frustrating guys I've ever watched. But his statistical case is almost unassailable. His stats are unbelievable. If you look at his clutch stats, his shooting stats, he's by far having the best year of his career. Every metric. And yet I also, from the eye test, like, and the effect he had on the team, it's a really tough All-NBA. And I also, like, I got to say, Jokic getting his ass kicked by Cousins the other night wasn't great either for the Jokic case. Cousins torched him and taunted him afterwards. Like, that was not great. So I think I'm going to have Embiid first team and also third MVP choice would be my guess. But we'll go over this next week.
What's wrong with that?
We'll go over it next week. I'll have all my final picks next week. House, congrats on finally getting rid of Ernie. Congrats on throwing your hat in the ring as the next Wizards GM. I hope they take it seriously. And good luck with all the Fairway Rolling podcasts.
Yeah, congrats on 3 Bud Lights. I only had 3 Bud Lights at lunch. And yeah, we'll be back. There's going to be so much golf next week. The Masters is here. The azaleas are in bloom. And something else is in bloom on my body, but I think it's the right time for me to bid you farewell.
Bye, House. Before we get to Colin Farrell, let's take a break to talk about Hotel Tonight. This winter is a great time to check out Hotel Tonight, whether you want to take a spontaneous ski trip or escape to a warm beach before it gets super nice. We're still not there yet. Hotel Tonight makes it easy to book a room with one of their last-minute deals. Tons of empty hotel rooms out there waiting to be booked. That's how Hotel Tonight scores incredible rates. They team up with awesome hotels to help them sell those rooms. They pass the savings along to you. And these aren't last resort type places. Hotel Tonight. They work with cool, top-rated hotels that you'd actually want to stay at. Unlike other travel companies, you don't have to scroll through endless lists of hotels. They show you the best deals at great hotels, along with short profiles that have pictures and all the info you need. Not just for last-minute bookings, play things by ear, or use Hotel Tonight to book in advance. And when you join Hotel Tonight's HT Perks program, the more you book, the better the deals get. To start scoring amazing deals at incredible hotels, go to hoteltonight.com or download the app right now. All right, it's time for me, Chris Ryan, and the one and only Colin Farrell. All right, Colin Farrell's here. Chris Ryan is here. We're excited for this one.
Thanks.
We've enjoyed your career.
Thank you.
To say the least.
You say it like it's over.
No.
We've enjoyed it. It's been a fun century with you.
Stepping away into the sunset.
You've been doing these things for these, what do they call these? Junkets? This isn't really a junket,
I
though.
don't feel like it's a junket.
It's a little tour.
Yeah.
It's a little interview tour.
Press tour.
Yeah. So you like this stuff?
No, not at all. No.
What's the best part about it?
The best part is traveling. Like
Yeah.
I got to go to Tokyo last week.
Oh.
Only 2 nights. You don't see much, but you certainly see a lot more Tokyo than you would if you were in Los Angeles.
Are you just stuck in a hotel the whole time?
No, for the majority of the day. There was, let me see, we arrived, we had 3 nights. We arrived late one night, slept that night, did a whole day of press. So we were 6-8 hours in the hotel the next day, did a screening that night. And then the next day we did a couple of things, took about 2 hours. And then we had the rest of the day just to walk around and get some ramen and have a little look at some cherry blossoms.
That's nice.
Tokyo's beautiful. That's the best part of it by a mile for me. I mean,
Going to different countries.
yeah, I have no desire to talk about, I love talking about films, about other people's films. I love films. I've always loved films. I love talking about aesthetic and performances and where a film got me or where it didn't get me. But
that's what we're going to do on this podcast.
Cool, man.
So
Let's talk about
that's
other
what
people's.
we do.
Let's talk about other people's work.
We can talk about other movies. We're going to talk about yours, but we'll talk about other ones.
Yeah.
So what were the formative movies for you when you were growing up? What were the ones that made you want to be an actor?
With the formative ones, the ones I remember most, like in my early childhood and then into my teens, were the Indiana Jones, and Spielberg played a huge part in my life as a lover of film, I suppose, fan of film when I was a kid. So E.T. was the first memory I have of a film in the cinema.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the first memory I have. Literally, I remember.
It's still in the argument for top 5 all time.
I mean,
E.T.? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it's got to be at least discussed.
Extraordinary, extraordinary film. Cried so hard watching it. Had such an emotional kind of outpouring. And I was thinking recently, and someone asked me about that experience, and it really did allow me to have an emotional outpouring, to feel my own it's going to sound a ridiculous humanity at the age of 6 or 7 in relation to the emotional life that lived inside me in a way that I wasn't allowed in the house I grew up in, or I wasn't allowed in school. I just felt like I had this permission to just feel and to express my feelings, which, you know, culminated in just box of Kleenex being used in a matter of mere minutes as soon as the flower started to wilt towards the end. So that was my first memory. And then, you know, Indiana Jones. Yeah, just loving Indiana Jones, the escapism of Indiana Jones. Roger Moore as Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the argument for Sean Connery being the best, and certainly that argument was clearer pre-Daniel Craig era. But just it's a case of who do you grow up in? Where does your nostalgia lie? And my nostalgia lies still to this day with Roger Moore, and the twinkle is in his
So
eye.
that was my first Bond too, was Roger Moore.
Yeah.
So I always feel like kind of
Same here.
kind of ties to him.
Yeah, a little protective of him.
Yeah.
You know, he was never really too much of a threat.
Right.
Yeah, I think that I grew up watching the Connery movies around my house, but I think there's like the Bond you see when you're like 13 or 14 is the Bond that you're going to remember always.
Yeah.
Which I think is why people get, you know, instantly kind of aggressive when they hear that a remake is being done of a film that meant something to them in their childhood.
Yeah.
Because it feels like somebody's pissing all over your youth, or pissing all over the validity of your opinion, the opinion that you had when you were 12 or 14 that you still carry with you as an adult, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you went through that with Total Recall.
Yeah, a little
Because
bit.
you had a whole bunch of people like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why?
Totally.
We like the old one. Stop.
I was kind of one of them, to be honest with you. So I had this kind of struggle between being a fan, like a real lover of the original.
Yeah.
I used to love all Schwarzenegger stuff as well, man.
Me too.
You know, Running Man is classic stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
So that one they could
Predators.
remake.
Running Man would,
I feel like Running Man could
they
come back.
unintentionally have remade Running Man with like modern society. Like,
Yeah.
You could tell me Running Man was actually
Anything that says post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
is borrowed from
But just
it, yeah,
even
for
if
sure.
I turned on the television one night and Running Man was on, I don't know that I wouldn't believe it.
Like if it was a reality
Totally.
TV show produced by LeBron
Not a
James.
million miles
Shit,
away.
this guy's getting chased.
There's no doubt that shit's been pitched already. It just hasn't got
I
the
think
green
there
light
is
yet.
like a Russian show where it's like, this guy dies.
Right.
Yeah, it just hasn't got the green light.
Who
If there's
dies
a
at
there's
the
a
end?
second term,
Yeah.
just, you know, you got about another
Yeah.
5 years to get that one in.
That's right.
Yeah, I would be okay with remaking that one. I mean, the Predator one was interesting,
Yeah.
but it is funny to be old enough to remember the original versions of a lot of these movies.
I
that
just
they're
get really
remaking.
freaked out
Yeah.
with all the anniversary celebrations
Oh,
Yeah.
because they
God.
just creep up on you where you don't, because I'm 41 and now there are things that, you know, I'll remember parts of my life where I was like, oh, I was living in New York in the early 2000s and now those movies are
Yeah,
all
what
getting
did we
there.
go and see recently outside this summer? Just passed in, was it San Pedro? I can't remember, but we went to see somewhere down south. E.T., I think the 25th
Yeah.
anniversary of E.T. God, it's all going way too fast.
Well, we're doing it this week at the site that we have. We're doing a whole celebration of all the movies from 1999. It's like Fight Club and Eyes Wide Shut.
The Matrix, Blair Witch
Wow.
Project.
Blair
It was
Witch.
like one of the great movie years of all time.
Wow.
Sixth Sense.
Fight Club was amazing. Sixth Sense was amazing.
A lot of good sports movies that
Yeah.
year, but it was
David
a lot
Fincher,
of people
he can
throwing their
make a movie.
fastball. Eyes
yeah.
Wide Shut and Magnolia.
Yeah.
were that year?
Magnolia. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, anything P.T. Anderson does, you know. God.
Did you work with him?
No, I'd love to. He's the only stock answer I have when I'm asked what filmmaker would you like to work
Oh,
with. I
seriously?
don't really have a list. I'm a fan of so many filmmakers, and but he's the only one that I just have a stock answer. I just pull it out. Yeah, so ever since Hard 8 and Magnolia and Boogie Nights and then even his more austere work
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
recent, you know, there seems to have been a sea change in his work from The Master and or There Will Be Blood was just a film that I was so blown away by the extraordinariness of it, but I also felt, that's how powerful it was, I felt kind of sick at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like Daniel Plainview's
think you were supposed to.
sickness,
Yeah.
you know, really. And I remember I had a showing of it in my house and I had about 12 mates over back in the days when I had 12 friends. And I stood up at the end of the film. I said, that is a piece of genius and I never want to see it again. I've since changed my mind.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it again. I will at some stage, but I just think he's an extraordinary filmmaker. And did you see the last one he did?
I loved it.
Phantom Thread? Yeah.
He
Oh
came
my
in. He
God.
came on this
Did
podcast
he,
to
man?
talk about it. It was awesome.
Oh man, I
Yeah.
thought it was just beautiful. The first 10 minutes of it, I just was dizzy with the symphonic element of the camera moving and what he was capturing. He's
And Daniel Day-Lewis was really throwing 100 miles an hour in that movie. He was so good.
I mean, he still has it where it's like the World Cup. Like he makes something every 4 years and you
is
gotta
like that.
watch it. It's like
It is.
you know,
It's an event. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta take my hat off to it.
You've done different versions of that, right? You were doing like big market movies, but now you seem like you're in the zone where you're just doing things for you.
I just feel like I just feel like I'm floating, man. I feel like I'm floating between genres. I'm floating between scale of films, you know.
So what's driving you at this point? Just the part? Like, what are you looking at when you look at a script?
There's
when
a few
somebody's
things
trying
that
to
drive
talk?
me. A need to provide for my family drives me. Still, it's not what it may seem from the outside looking in. There's that. It's a job. But just talking creatively, self-servingly in regards to my creative engine or curiosity, what drives me is the unknown, really. I mean, that's when it's most interesting. When the unknown meets a curiosity that you mightn't have even known you had. Like I read The Killing of a Sacred Deer and I go, what in God's name is this about? What's it trying to say? Is it trying to say anything? Is it just a set of circumstances piling one after another to build and ratchet up the tension in the 90 minutes that it's going to last? What is the allegorical component of it? But once I start being confused by something in that vein, then the ink is nearly on the paper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not always that you get that. So it's different things. Like Dumbo, working with Tim Burton. The desire to work with Tim Burton drove me purely. And then on a film that was so earnest and sweet and had such a lovely message at its center, was gorgeous, was kind of was gilding the lily. But just working with Burton, having been a fan of his for 30 plus years and growing up watching Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice and all those things, I mean, sure, that was a dream come true for me.
What'd you learn from him? What was the number one thing you learned watching him?
I don't know what I learned from it. It's very hard to say. Anytime I see somebody that's been around as long as he's been around, or been around as long as Pacino had been around when I did The Recruit with him 4 lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
When you see that their level of passion, I can't compare their level of passion today to what it was 30 years ago, but it's still astonishing to see the level of engagement that someone like Tim Burton has in the whole process of creating the worlds that he creates. His attention to detail, his entire kind of consummation in relation to the project was pretty impressive. I'd watch him behind the monitor and he'd be like full on ugly face acting with all the actors, and then they'd say cut and then walk onto the set and give his notes, you know. And he's a beauty, that man. He's just, every cell in his body vibrates with creative energy. He really does. He's pure eccentric magic. He really, really is.
Do you still get surprised when you walk on sets?
Yeah.
Like, is there still stuff that happens on a movie set that you're like, oh crap,
it's a pretty familiar place to me now, while respecting that every set has its own tone and energy and pace and all that jazz. But on the sets of Dumbo, I did find myself pinching myself a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because of the scale of the sets and the beauty of the sets. And like, I'd walk onto the big set. Did you see the film?
No, we didn't.
There's a scene halfway through the film when we leave our little podunk circus and we align ourselves with the darkness that is Michael Keaton's character. And we have an introductory scene as we're brought into his new big fandangled theme park. And I used to walk that set on my own every now and then. It was just the most extraordinary piece of craftsmanship and imagination come to life. And any given day, like when we were shooting that scene of us arriving into this theme park and there was people on the left and right, fathers and mothers and their children, and balloons and candy cane, and there was a 20-piece brass band and 10 people on horseback, and there was 20 Ford Model T cars from the period, 600 extras all going at the same time, and this was inside a building. This wasn't even outside. It was the weirdest thing. You'd walk 10 o'clock in the morning, sun's beating outside, an hour outside of London, and you'd walk after having your breakfast into this dark, cavernous, monolithic space, and there would be all this life and imagination coming to life. And I got a tear in my eye the first day I arrived on the set.
That's like Cecil B. DeMille stuff.
It really, man, it was like Orson Welles said, you know, you finally get to play with the biggest train set in the world, you know. It was extraordinary, really. There's a lot of CGI in the film, of course. You know, there's an awful dearth of flying elephants in the world at the moment, so we had to stretch the realms of reality there.
Yeah.
But everything that you can kind of see within 50 yards of any of the action in the film was all there.
Well, you've worked with a bunch of famous actors. Is it easier to work with a famous actor when you're not famous yet, or when you're an established person?
Is it easier to work with a famous actor when you're not famous
When you're like
yet?
the unproven guy trying to catch up, or when you're actually a peer?
That's a really
Like,
good-
what was it
that's a
like to do
really
Recruit
crafty
with
thing, you know.
Pacino?
Yeah, and you're
That's a
basically
really
like
good-
you haven't proven yourself to him yet, but you also have nothing to lose.
I mean, it's a really good question. I mean, I've worked with. It depends. It depends on how much focus you give to the other.
Yeah.
It really does. I just realized because I've worked through the years. I remember one actor on this film I did, London Boulevard, and he was extraordinary. And he came in and he did one scene and he was amazing. And I just thought I couldn't compete with him. Now I shouldn't even be thinking of competing with him. It's not supposed to be a competition. It's supposed to be some, parallel mutual experience of bringing a story to life through listening and sharing and being affected by and or not.
Yeah.
Depending on but I don't know. I through the years have paid less attention to the other in the form of competition.
Yeah.
So now I get excited when somebody comes in to do 1 or 2 days and I don't know who they are. I get excited to see what they'll bring to the table, and I don't get too nervous working with established names.
Like Chris and I are competing right now.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
No.
It's a
but
duel.
It's, the air.
It's like
Yeah.
No, but the
there's
air
a
is-
whole little mind game going on
the
right
air
now
is
with
thick
us.
with tension. I noticed it as soon as I walked in.
Because you worked with, when was Minority Report? That was like 2002? And you're working with Cruz, and he's the biggest star in the world.
And you're on set with Spielberg, who you've
Yeah.
already
Yeah,
got
and
this like,
Spielberg,
thing in your
forgot
head
about him.
about.
Yeah, I might have
Oh
felt
yeah, Spielberg, your hero.
I might have felt a bit of pressure on that one. But I was also, I was cocky as anything back then, and I was,
Yeah.
and I honestly, it's like straight up, I wasn't very sober ever.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have a buzz going, I had the nervousness and the kind of strange ethereal high that comes with the next day thing.
Yeah.
There's a confidence in a hangover.
Yeah,
Where there's like
absolutely.
the- yeah.
Confidence that touches madness.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really hinder the creative process. I mean, maybe I'll never know what work I would have done if I was more straight. But no, I was a bit nervous. I'm always nervous going to work. I like fear is not an enemy to me at all. To this day, I'm fairly hard on myself, and it's something that's quotidian. It defies any kind of conventional mathematical measurement. So it's always interpretation. And sure, there's nobody that could interpret my worth
Right.
as cruelly as I could interpret it myself at times,
What do you remember about those 5 years before you went into rehab? Like, does stuff blur together? Like, because you made a lot of movies.
yeah.
You hosted SNL.
Yeah. Well,
you were in the mix with stuff.
SNL, I can't remember much of that week, to be honest with you.
Really?
Okay, honestly, I can't remember much of the show. I can't remember much of that week. I remember, I know, I have the feeling that I had a good time.
Yeah.
that has lingered through the mists of time and sobriety. But I can't remember much of that week. I don't remember much of Miami Vice.
Oh, we wanted to talk about Miami
At
Vice.
all. Sure. I don't remember much of it at all. I mean, when I saw the film, there were some scenes. It was interesting because I could kick back and watch them as if it was the first time I had anything.
You're like,
to
who's
do
this
with them.
guy?
Yeah. Wow.
He's making some great
This guy with a
choices.
mustache.
Yeah,
He's killing it.
who chose that mullet? But no, I remember my initial arrival here very much. But yeah, it's all kind of blends in. It was a very foggy time, and it was just a lot. Look, the smallest violin in the world shouldn't play for the loneliness or the sense of dislocation or the kind of the guilt that can come with success when it comes so fast. It's not a poor me at all, but just to be honest with you, it was a lot for me personally to experience. Like I hear about Justin Bieber, he's taking a bit of time or whatever. I go, God bless him, good for it's a lot. Again, I'm not saying sad story, poor Justin. I know there's people starving in the world. I know there's people living under greater duress and hardship than Justin or myself back in the day or whatever. I get it. But it's a lot. It's a lot to give a child, to give a young man.
How old
whatever.
were you? You were
I
like
was
22?
22 or 3.
At
I was
Tigerland?
I was a young man, but I was 22 or 3. Who knows how you gauge someone's emotional development, but I was maybe 12 some days, 7 other days, 17 other days,
I also remember when Tigerland came out. It was like, this is the fucking guy. Like,
Yeah.
really
it was
fast.
mad. It was mad.
It was. You didn't do like a lot of time in the minors.
No.
Yeah.
I earned about 30 grand for Tigerland.
Yeah.
I earned 375 grand for my second film.
Was that SWAT?
No, that was American Outlaws.
Okay.
And I earned $2.5 million for my third film.
Jesus.
I mean, that's insane. I was 22 or 3. I
Yeah.
was getting invitations to the Playboy Mansion. My head was on a swivel. you know. And I think pretty quickly, just because I didn't know how to, I had no relationship to that degree of fame in my life. I didn't see it growing up. I didn't have anyone that I saw handle it in any way, good or bad. I didn't have any cautionary tales that were close to me. I didn't have any decent example of how to, you know, generate an integrity or sense of dignity that was close to me. So I was just figuring it out, you know, myself as a young kid, doing all the things the majority of 22-year-olds would have done. But I always had a voracious appetite.
Yeah.
So it was like I always, from the time I started drinking when I was 14 or carousing or whatever, I always had a big engine. So that engine just got stuffed with opportunity. And so, you know, I ended up, but I lost sight of just the really little pure spark. And you guys, I'm sure, have your own version of this, of why you do what you do.
Yeah.
You know, you got to provide as well for whoever you have to provide for, but there's something that allows you, I assume, to do something that you're doing for your livelihood, but also engenders a great deal of passion.
Yeah.
Which can ebb at times, we get. But for me, I totally lost sight of, and that was what I realized in Miami Vice. I totally lost sight of how excited I felt when I did my first acting workshop when I was 16 or 17.
Was that because of this particular circumstances around Miami Vice, or was that because was that just because of
you were going downhill?
Yeah, it was a cumulative thing, you know.
Yeah.
It was just years of, I mean, I traveled a lot, and look, I missed weddings at home. I missed funerals at home. I missed really important community, family, friend experiences that, you know, are day-to-day things, but in the total lacking of them in a person's life, it hurts. You know, it hurts you emotionally, it hurts you psychologically. And I was on the road. I was on the road for pretty much, it was a 6 or 7 year chapter in my life.
Yeah, but when you talk about like the tiny violin thing, see, I think this stuff is fascinating, and it's something that, you know, obviously we care about sports and pop culture. That's what we cover at The Ringer, and we're into. And it's a lot of the same obstacles.
Man. Let's talk boxing.
Well, it's the same obstacles, right? Where you have, in the NBA, you have some kid who's 20 who comes in the league who all of a sudden he's making $7 million a year.
So much.
And he's got all these people in his life who want something from him.
Sure.
And all of a sudden he's being recognized everywhere he goes. And he's got all these pressures that he never had before. And some people don't handle it well. And I think Hollywood, that's been a recurring theme for 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I without knowing it, I vacillated somewhere between needing it to a certain degree or wanting it. No, I think needing it to a certain degree. Needing it, like, what is fame? What does fame to the majority of us represent? Certainly in our younger ages, and maybe our relationship to it matures, regardless of how close or how distant it is to us, maybe just as a result of contemplation. But as children, fame equals acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance,
steroids.
money, and women.
Yeah. I mean, you could say money and women equal acceptance, how we process them.
Right.
So acceptance is the linchpin through which all these kind of reaches that human beings make through their lives are contingent upon, our desire to be accepted. So I obviously had that to get on. I mean, I was an actor. I went to theatre school. I was kind of serious about the journey of being an actor initially. And then all this stuff, I got on the plane, I came to Los Angeles, and all this stuff happened really fast, where the swell of attention and what felt like acceptance was so much more aggressive and so much more apparent, because it was so big. It's just a lot of energy than even my own passion. I didn't have enough history exploring my passion. I didn't do 5 years of theatre and 2 years of television and 4 small films in Ireland. I didn't have enough of a personal relationship with acting. I had done it for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden I was at the center of these American films. So I just didn't.
So you would have been better off like ending up on ER as a doctor for 3 years, just kind of getting work and then getting a chance.
Who fucking knows?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
but
what happened to you is like only happens once every 10 years. Like it happened to you and Matthew McConaughey, where it's like never heard of the guy till like
the
now
pace with which it happened.
Yeah.
Honestly, the pace with which
Julia
it happened.
Roberts had happened to when she did Pretty Woman and was the biggest star in the world all of a sudden.
Yeah.
She had been in like 2 movies before
it's
that.
it's very rare, and Julia sustained it with interesting work and good choices and things working out in her favor. And
but she struggled for a couple of years too.
She did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
after
hard.
After Pretty Woman.
Well, the other thing and the other thing we didn't mention is, you know, when you're up there, and you make a movie that maybe isn't that good and you're getting critiqued for the first time. And
there's
all these other things that are like, whoa, I thought I was great. Wait, and then you have
or
all
else
that.
you never thought you were great and you're feeling, now
now
they're being
onto
honest
me.
about me. Now they're onto me. Now they see what I've always felt myself, but I didn't need to check in with because everyone was saying that I was something else that I wasn't, that nobody is, that it's all an illusion. I mean, that's what I've learned in the years. It's all just an illusion. The fame thing, the idea of success is so subjective.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, the idea of if someone says, well, you're a success, what does that even mean? What do they know about my life? What do they know about me as a man, as a father, as a friend? What am I like as a brother?
Right.
What do I feel about my own worth? All those things, like surely they are more meaningful than any kind of thing that could give somebody from the outside looking in a perspective on how successful or unsuccessful my life is. Likewise, somebody saying you're not successful. What does anyone know?
Does that feeling change how you relate to things like athletes or pop?
I have massive respect for athletes. Look, I was going to be an athlete. I thought I was going to be an athlete until I was 14.
What were you going to do?
My dad was a professional football player, soccer.
Yeah.
And his brother as well. And they played for Shamrock Rovers back in the day when Shamrock Rovers were a big team and even on the European stage. And he played for Ireland a couple of times. And that was what I thought until I was about 14 I was going to do.
What position were you?
I was all over the place, to be honest with you. I played striker, I had a couple of good years at striker, and then I went left half, kind of left side defensive midfielder, and then I ended up in goals. I worked on my way back down the pitch. It's the story of my life, man. Jack of all trades, master of none. But yeah, that was what. And boxing, I've been an avid fan of boxing all my life. Never boxed, but I have enormous respect for athletes and for the singularity. Look, the success, any kind of perceived success for me and what I do is contingent upon so many people saying it's a success or it's not. I mean, that's just it. It's two things. It's the public going to see your work and enjoying it or not enjoying it, and it's critics saying your work is worthwhile or not worthwhile. And the beautiful thing, the purity of sports, is something that art, nor should it compete with, but will never be able to touch. The purity of sport.
And there's definitive winner and loser.
Just definitive winner or loser. The team sports are one thing. The singularity of some sports, none more kind of gut-wrenchingly perilous to the individual as boxing, but also tennis. There are sports where it's just, I can't imagine, it's just person against person. The mano a mano. It's just, it's amazing to me, and it's just brilliant. And the boldness of spirit that reveals itself in sport finds it hard to work its way into the arena of art.
What is in Ireland? What are the rankings for most popular sports right now? You think is soccer still one?
Yeah, I would say so.
Has McGregor changed MMA?
Nah,
not really.
No, I would say soccer, rugby, and I would imagine those are more popular than, I could be wrong, than our national sports of Gaelic football and hurling, which are hugely popular sports and get massive sellout crowds of 40 and 60,000 regularly at games. They're incredibly popular.
Have you been to one of those?
When I lived in Ireland, I lived in Cork for 6 months.
Oh, did you? Where?
Yeah. In '99, I was there.
In Cork City?
Yeah.
Cork's a great place.
Yeah, it was really
Did you get
fun.
down to the coast at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Did you go down to the Beara Peninsula?
Yeah.
Did you go to Castletown Bear?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So you had a pint of McCarthy's pub?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I did it. It was like Galway.
Ding, ding, ding.
I did Galway. I did
Galway's great.
Dublin, and we did a lot of
Dublin's a great town. The West Coast is beautiful. That'd be the
all
the places I've traveled, the West Coast, southwest coast of Ireland, and Big Sur up the road.
I gotta
here.
do this. I've never done it.
You've never been to Ireland?
Oh, you would. Do you play golf?
I'm 25% Irish.
I don't play golf. Do you play golf?
I do.
Oh, I mean, it just gets
That's
better.
why I have to go. I'm 25% Irish. I feel like I have to go there at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Do the Irish celebrities, is there like a text chain that you guys are all on?
No.
Bono and Edge, McGregor.
We're not the biggest
Slack channel.
We're not the biggest demographic in the world, but for a population of 4.5 million people, God, we do all right, man.
Yeah.
We do okay.
I mean, seriously, LA is probably what, 5 times the size of Ireland? How big is LA now?
It's definitely
15 million, 20 million.
It feels like it takes as
17,
long to drive across Los Angeles as it does to drive across Ireland.
Yeah, it's about that. Depends. If you're coming from Encino and rush hour traffic, it's about the same coast to coast at home. Yeah, small island.
Have you met the U2 guys?
Yeah, I know all the boys. Yeah.
So what happens?
What do you mean?
Like,
what
hey,
happened?
man.
Yeah, they get on stage, they do their thing, and you're lucky enough you get a little VIP pass to the old. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna talk Miami Vice.
Okay.
We
should prep him about
So we do this one of the podcasts we do here is called The Rewatchables, where we rewatch movies that we love. And last year we did or was it this year or last year?
Last year.
We did Miami Vice because
90 minutes long.
him and I both feel like it's a
90-minute cut?
It's
No,
a
it's a
90-minute
90-minute podcast.
podcast.
Oh, God. I was going to say,
So-
is Michael Mann doing an Oliver Stone?
No,
Oliver
no.
cut 5 versions of Alexander. He was so demented.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Anyway, yeah, totally.
So we felt like it was this underrated classic, but we just felt like it was us. And then there's like
You're not
on
the
the
only people
internet,
say
there's
that,
this
man.
whole
Yeah,
thing.
I know, I'm aware
And
of
it's
that.
become like
A
this
cult classic.
belated classic.
Told you.
Just like you drew it up.
Yeah. Totally.
So you don't remember.
Just because I don't remember it doesn't mean I don't think it was a classic.
So you don't remember that much from it.
Not that much. No. I mean, I remember it was a tough shoot. It was a tough, long
It was like a
shoot.
legendary
Some
tough
pretty wild
shoot.
shit happened then, right?
You're in Cuba and Miami.
Yeah, someone got shot in the set in the Dominican.
Oh my God.
There was a storm in Miami, really aggressive one. I can't remember her name. And it tore down all the glass and all the buildings in Brickell. And we were flying in a helicopter that day. There was plane to plane shooting that was not safe at all. It was all.
But you must have kind of secretly liked
There
it
was
a little
all
bit too.
manner of madness. You know what? I was pretty up for it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Yeah, I was pretty up for it.
Because was there a story at the end? In the ending, he wanted to film it somewhere, and Jamie Foxx was like, "I'm not going there. You have to change the location."
That was post the shootout on the set, which was, I just remember being, that bit I remember. I remember my dad was visiting that day and we were on the set in a building upstairs on the first or second floor of a building, on the first floor of a building. I had a ground floor. And we, with Gong Li was there. We were about to do a scene. My dad was visiting and I remember hearing a couple of bangs and look, I'd shot about 10,000 rounds in preparation for that film. So I knew what a firearm going off sounded
Right.
like. And I grabbed Gong Li and my dad and took them to a back room and said, wait there, and went out, and there was all sorts of commotion and just absolute panic. And what had happened, I'm not really clear on it, but I think the army that was offering security, because we were shooting in a dodgy part of town, were a bunch of kids. I mean, they were like 18, 19, I think, and they were carrying AR-15s or whatever it was, and an off-duty cop, I believe, who was lit, tried to get on the set.
Oh no.
And the kid in full fatigues pushed him back, and the off-duty cop didn't tell the
back.
guy he was a cop. He didn't identify himself as law enforcement, and he took a 6-shooter out of his waistband,
Oh, no.
out of his Bermuda pants with his belly hanging over them waistband.
God.
And your man, I think, let go a couple of rounds. One of the rounds or two of the rounds hit the cop. I know he was shot. One of the rounds went through a porta potty, where if somebody was in there, they were brown bread.
Yeah.
I saw the bullet hole through the porta potty, through the, and that was when Jamie went, fuck this.
That's insane.
Respect to him, respect to him. He had enough respect for himself. I did,
Yeah.
But we had to, the end of the film was going to take place in Dominican, and we had to move it to Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that's happened with that movie is because the TVs got nicer, like the TV right there, and the widescreen, and the picture. So some of these movies that were shot earlier than the last 10 years, have just translated really well to the
beautiful.
equipment we have.
And that
now.
movie didn't look like anything else. At the
No,
time.
he's
Yeah, yeah.
visually it was astounding.
Yeah.
What part did you wish you had gotten that you didn't get? That is like your big regret part. Do you have one?
I don't have one.
You don't have one?
No, I don't have one.
Or a part that you were gonna do and you had to at the last minute back out?
I could tell you films that I loved that I would have gone. God, I would have loved to have given that part a go, but they were done so extraordinary.
Give me one of those. What part were you the most jealous of?
Oh, her.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Spike
wow.
Jonze is her. Yeah. Oh, I just thought it was just, and I mean, Joaquin was.
Yeah.
As he is in every single performance he gives, he was astonishing in it and beautiful and heartfelt and so fucking present, So her would be one of them, that I saw that film. It was my favorite film of that year. Yeah, for sure.
We just had the 5-year. Remember we were talking about the 5-year Oscars?
Yeah.
That was in
That was
the
in
mix
there. It was
for
in the
that.
mix. We
Her
basically were
was.
talking about like they shouldn't do the Oscars every year. They should do like Oscars for the 5 years of movies.
It should be 5 years later, so we have some time to think about.
to
Yeah.
digest it. Yeah,
Yeah, whether-
not get caught up
how
in
much
all
it still resonates.
ambush of marketing and have our opinions.
Do you make like a 10
manipulated.
best list at the end of the year? Do you like make little lists of stuff?
No, but I come across them every
Yeah.
now and then online or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the things you loved in the last year?
In the last year?
The last few years, then. Did you see The Rider?
Yeah. I loved,
The Rider.
Rider was amazing. Yeah, it was beautiful.
I loved Get Out. I actually liked last year more than 2018, where like Get Out and Lady Bird, and I just thought it was a really creative year. Last year, I gotta say, I really liked The Star Is Born.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was like an old school Hollywood movie, like the kind of movie I grew up with big stars.
Yeah.
Shot really well and just stars being stars. And I still feel like in the era of everybody putting on a cape, it was just nice to see a movie with stars that had a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And I wish that happened more often. Did you ever have a chance to be like a cape where you'd have to make like 7 sequels of a movie and do that whole thing?
No, never had the chance. I did Daredevil long before Marvel.
I remember you're the bad guy,
long
right?
Before, Marvel became what it is today. But no, I've never had the chance, no.
There are a couple of movies from right after Miami Vice, especially in that period, that I was really surprised because they mean a lot to me, but I was like surprised they didn't like pop. Like Pride and Glory is a movie that I think is like super underrated. Are there films like that and where you're like, either that have caught on later on, or that you were surprised at the time that people didn't find, or disappointed that they didn't find?
Disappointed, yes.
Yeah.
Surprised, no. I mean, I honest to God, have no expectation in my suitcase. I just don't travel with it, and it's not even a decision. Maybe it's a little bit of a decision.
It's good philosophy.
That's good.
But honest to God,
no expectation in my suitcase. I like it.
Yeah.
But I hope all the time. Like you go to work, there's no director in the world. I don't give a shit how bad people say his films. There's no one in the world that goes to work to make a shit film or bore people. You know.
Yeah.
So you always have hope that I've always had hope that what I'm stepping into will find a life afterwards and will either entertain, offer escapism, offer a provocation, whatever it may be. I was disappointed. There was a film I did that I loved called Undine.
Yeah.
That nobody saw. I think it did like 750 grand at the box office.
I didn't even see that
Yeah.
one.
No, nobody
saw that one?
Bill,
I think
nobody
I
saw
remember
it.
seeing it when it came out, maybe.
Nobody saw it. And I just thought it was it's not an earth-shattering film, but I thought it was a very sweet film and it had a lot of integrity and heart. And
Is that Neil Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote and directed it. And it just
kind of came and
I
went.
had a
and that was
very
it?
deep affection for the character in that film, and there was some points of interest that we crossed on, or points of experience that character myself crossed on, and nobody didn't know what to do with it. They hadn't got the money to market it. Not that it would have ever done huge anyway. It was quite intimate, quite small. But there are films like that. Pride and Glory. See, I have very little objectivity over what I've done because my experience with it is so total in relation to 3 or 4 months of doing something, getting to know the people I'm working with, being in another location, what's happening in my life while I'm shooting that film. There's so much information that I experience in the making of a film that then to go and see it reduced to this hour and a half,
I know,
2 hour soundbite, it's just weird.
Was it cool working with Edward Norton on that?
Yeah, I enjoyed working with Ed. Yeah, he was good. Yeah, he was good. He's very bright and all about the business. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed working with him. And that film, Gavin O'Connor went to great lengths, to do the NYPD as much justice as he could. There was a lot of police lads that were there, giving us details that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And
you've had to do an American accent in some movies. You've had some trial and error with it. What tricks do you have when you do it? What did you base yours on?
But accents depends on the accent. I've had different dialect coaches through the years. I've had 4 or 5 different dialect coaches. The one I'm working with now, I've worked on maybe 4 or 5 projects with. Did True Detective with her and did Dumbo with her and Fantastic Beasts, a few other things. Again, it's that thing you just don't. I certainly don't know look. It's one of 2 things. Accent work, I believe, it's either a conduit into the character, or it's a barrier that'll keep you away from a sense of freedom that you need to explore something to the depth that you should explore it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And a lot of that is down to your own mental head games and your level of uncertainty or your lack of familiarity. So what I have found is the more and more familiar you can be with it, the more and more, of course, like anything, you work on it, then the more freedom you have within it, and then the more you can throw the classroom away and just be in the playground.
You haven't done a Boston movie though, right?
Huh?
Have you done a Boston movie yet?
Boston, no.
That
No.
one will be easy for you if you ever do
Boston,
that.
no. Yeah.
The Irish and
no.
the English created
He's pretty
Boston.
hard to
I did
please though with
Chicago.
Boston.
I did a fairly heavy. We went for it and did a fairly heavy accent for this film Widows. I did, and I got hung.
Oh,
couple-
yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
But
Widows is
I went for it,
incredible.
man, and I don't know. I make no apologies for that one. But
Widows, I think Widows is going to have legs. It came out, it did okay. But I think when it hits cable and it's on
Yeah.
Netflix for a while, and I just think
Hope
it's
so.
going to keep going because
It's a lot
it's
of good
so
work in it.
interesting.
It's a lot of good work, and he's another great director, Steve McQueen.
When you're doing in Bruges or Seven Psychopaths or something like
Yeah.
that, is it a little bit more like the safety's off? Like, do you not have that thing in the back of your head that is modulating your accent and doing stuff like that? Is there a little bit of freedom doing something like that?
In my own accent,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the go. Look, I'm thinking in Undine, I did a very thick accent that, even though it's Irish, is as distant from me as Texas. But I do have a freedom, doing my, But there's sometimes when I've done an accent, there's been, and not every time, and that's the concerning thing for me personally, but there has been times where I felt complete freedom with an accent I was doing, and some of it is down to there are phonetic sounds that are closer to an Irish, like Southern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A Southern accent has so many kind of so many parallels in the way it sounds and in the shape the mouth makes and where the tongue rests in the mouth with Irish accents. So those ones I have. New York for some reason, and I think because the New York accent is an amalgam of many different cultures arriving in New York and a pronounced culture in the New York experience from its settlement on up was the Irish influx. So there are accents, but ideally, look, I'll have done enough work by the time I get in front of the camera that there is a freedom. But of course, doing my own accent, but as well doing my own accent, also there's a catch, which is I feel like myself.
Yeah,
which is the negative aspect of it. I feel like I'm a little the line isn't as definitive between me and the character I'm playing, which can be a bit of a head fuck as well.
Do you want to hear Chris's imitation of Bono scolding the crowd?
The first thing I was going to ask when I came in was, is there any chance I could hear Chris's imitation
No, well,
of
there's
Bono?
like this famous, when U2 was doing Achtung Baby,
Yeah.
they used to do a bit where he would call President, I think he called President, was it Bush?
President Bush.
He would call, he's like, excuse me, Mr. President, I want to tell you about the environment. And he would call like the White House every night. And it's on YouTube.
That's good.
I don't know.
one
I
of your
think
best
This is
bits.
Bono if he's from Belfast.
Yeah.
Is that Belfast Bono?
It's Belfast Bono.
What's
That should be your new stick, man.
Belfast
Do
Bono?
It's
I
pretty
like
much my
that.
old shtick, yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, Belfast Bono.
Belfast.
What's the best Irish movie of all time?
Ooh.
Is there a leader? What's the Citizen Kane of Ireland?
I mean, can I toss a coin? I can pick two.
Yeah, pick two.
Of course.
The Commitments of My Left Foot.
The Commitments is
Oh.
a fucking masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
It's so
Alan
good.
Parker at the peak of
I
his
don't know why-
of his prowess.
It doesn't get
An
thrown
amazing
around.
cast of actors, musicians, non-actors who all blend seamlessly, and just a gut-wrenching story of a dream nearly realized, and then falling apart like a zeppelin in flames at the very last minute. When that limousine pulls up, and he's in the back of the limousine on his way to see the gig, but they finished it and they've all already imploded, and he asks Jimmy Rabbit for the directions to the gig. And it's a brilliant film, start to finish, and it's also an incredibly socially responsible film as to Dublin at that time and the poverty that was prevalent in Dublin at that time, And then My Left Foot is just extraordinary as well. I mean, you've got
Wasn't that his breakout movie? I mean, he
Yeah.
already broken out, but that was
that
the one
was
where
when
people
people
like,
were
this
just
guy's
like-
De
that was
Niro.
when the whole room was standing up, for the
Yeah.
first time and going, okay, there's something really abnormally special going on here. Yeah. But Brenda Fricker in there as well,
Yeah.
like just brilliant actors, and Jim Sheridan again at the peak of his powers as a filmmaker, Those two.
Best Irish sports movie?
Best,
Have we had one?
do we have a best Irish
This
sports
could
movie?
be your
Only Irish sports movie.
next
Yeah, yeah,
project.
I don't know.
What about like three brothers on the soccer team all trying to make
just-
the national team or
I
something?
just thought of
Rugby?
Victory, Escape to Victory. Do you remember Escape to Victory?
Are
Yeah.
you?
This is like one of his favorite movies.
It's an all-time classic.
Yeah, yeah.
Who is the Irish guy in that movie?
Was there an Irish guy?
They had the Irish guy.
They didn't have George Best, wasn't it?
No, it was the goalie broke his arm. He was the Irish guy. They talked the Irish guy into breaking his arm.
Stallone was the goalie.
Yeah, but he was the goalie because they talked the original goalie into breaking his arm so they could all escape. And the guy was like, "All right, cool," and they broke his arm. Everyone else escaped.
Let's look it up right now.
I can't remember.
But I remember Ozzy Ardiles was in there.
Oh, that's the last 30 minutes of that movie is, I think, my favorite sports movie stretch.
It's incredible.
Do you know what? I haven't seen that in
actually
20 plus years now.
Because what happened initially, it was on TV. It was the square, and he filmed it completely vertical.
Like,
I mean, a horror
widescreen. Yeah,
widescreen.
Yeah.
Right.
So now that the TVs have caught up with it, you can see like all the plays, and it's like out of control.
Who's the Irish
Sly Stallone
goalkeeper?
as the goalie was a little bit of a reach, but
Terrible. I mean,
they had to get
As
it
a
made.
former keeper, you were probably
his
just like really.
technique was just
Well, plus he
fantastic.
catches the penalty kick, which is the least realistic
like
sports movie
in his,
moment.
in his belly.
Yeah,
in his belly. Or was
Pulls
it? Was
it
it
in.
there? Was it there?
No, he pulls
was
it
out a
back
bit.
in.
Do you think that anybody could make a good movie out of Roy Keane's life?
Ooh.
Keane is a.
So Roy Keane is like this
Yeah.
one of the most famous Irish athletes ever. He's a midfielder who played for Manchester United.
Of course they could.
Yeah.
He's a fast. Look, you can make a movie out of anybody's life. Human beings are interesting. There's no such thing as a boring person. There are people that will bore me. There are people that will bore you. But there's no boring person. There's just people that will bore me. They're not
Wait,
a boring person.
how old are you now?
I'm bored by them. Doesn't make them boring.
Yeah.
Human beings are fascinating. The stories we carry with us.
How old are you now?
I'm 42.
Oh, you got 3 years left. You got a sports movie in you. Just
I
bang
got
one out.
3 years left.
You do soccer?
Tore my ACL 7
Well,
months
that's
ago,
a
man.
phys-
That could be
Physically, you
you're,
got 3
it's
years
you're an
left.
Did you ever
athlete
do it?
recovering from your ACL injury from
This
one
is
last.
good.
It's the actor who wants to be in the Victory remake.
He wants to
but
be in
he's-
the Escape
he's got-
to Victory
He's
sequel.
taking HGH and microfracture surgery.
Meanwhile,
to
I'm
get
over
ready.
here fulfilling my new employment as researcher for this
You're
podcast.
a ringer
I'm trying to
intern.
find out who the goalkeeper was and escape to victory.
Yeah, he was there. They talked the Irish guy into breaking his own arm. I always felt like as a 25.
Do you think he was a goalkeeper or was he an actor?
Well, he was the actor playing the
Playing
goalkeeper.
Kevin
Yeah.
O'Callaghan?
That's who it was.
Kevin O'Callaghan?
Yeah,
Callahan?
yeah. They talked him into it. It never sat right with me.
I obviously blanked the whole plot point.
All right, this was fun. We turned you into a researcher.
Yeah.
I'm good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
this
gonna
is
ask.
great.
I was just gonna ask about about TV stuff.
Oh, let's do that. Let's do the TV stuff, and then we'll wrap.
I actually really, I liked.
You are in the minority.
No, look. You were amazing on that show. On True Detective?
Man,
it's come around.
the-
It's come around. I'm telling you.
The blades were sharpened.
It's
I mean,
just
you know,
people-
the
that
first
happens.
season was so strong, you know, and it came out of nowhere. This didn't come out. There was all that expectation, you know. Again, it's not for me to say it really. I have no desire to say what its worth is or isn't. All I know is I loved working on it.
Mhm.
Like loved working on it. I loved that character. I loved working with Nick Pizzolatto. I think Nick is an extraordinary writer and philosopher, actually. And I saw the third season. I thought
Yeah,
it was-
the Mahershala
I thought it was-
one.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, we did like a bunch of stuff on that.
I
It
thought
was really good.
fantastic.
Are you home? Are you like when you go home at night? Are you usually watching new stuff, new movies, or are you going back and watching older movies? Are you watching all the TV that's on now? Like
Not
'cause
all the
there's-
TV, bits and pieces of TV. I finally watched all of Game of Thrones about maybe a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah.
I watched was it 5?
You could have cameoed
Years.
on that show for like 2 episodes.
I did?
No, you could have.
Oh yeah, I could have.
You could have gone in there.
Yeah.
Just been some crazy prince.
Another opportunity missing. Crazy
Dialed it up.
Prince. Yeah.
Dialed it up for 2 episodes.
Crazy
Get killed bad night.
Prince with a dodgy ACL.
Who really just
how
wants
many
to be a
gigs
keeper?
can we make
Yeah.
that work for? But I watch it, man. The old films, black and whites.
Yeah.
You know, I watched Dublin Indemnity a couple of weeks ago. I watched new stuff, The Rider. Yeah.
Did you watch Dairy
I
Girls?
watched Blaze a couple of. You seen Blaze? Ethan Hawke.
Oh, the
directed.
Ethan Hawke movie. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shit, that is tasty.
Yeah.
Oh,
He seems like we've had him on the pod and he was unbelievable. And he seems like your kind of guy.
he's so tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see Dairy Girls?
No, I hear it's great.
It is really funny. Yeah. Second
Saw
season.
Mustang last week.
Yeah.
With what's his name? Matthias Schoenbart.
Yeah. Schoenhart's. Yeah.
Schoenhart.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what do your
See,
next 5 years look like? You're just making making stuff?
Just this, man. I just hopefully can, find my way in front of a microphone, if not a camera, and keep working for a
You
living.
got your Irish soccer movie, the
Got the Irish
national
soccer
team,
movie.
the Three Brothers.
That's the one.
You're 42,
starring Kevin
but you're still
O'Callaghan
doing
coming out of
Kevin
retirement.
O'Callaghan's
This time we break his leg.
Jr.
This
Kevin
time we break
O'Callaghan
his leg.
Jr. is in it.
Yeah.
Do you find most of the interesting stuff you're reading now is designated for TV, or is it a mix?
A lot of the strongest
that's
writing.
a good question.
A lot of the strongest writing seems to be finding its way to TV.
Were you going to do Oliver North for your guys?
Yeah. We
you-
were with Amazon, and then a bunch of stuff happened at Amazon and it got put in the back. I don't know where that is now. Great script. Jesus, talk about a satire done just beautifully. Yorgos really wanted to direct it. I don't know, that might come around again.
There's no government scandals anymore, so it's not that timely, right?
Yeah, this will be the last.
Yeah,
that was the
exactly.
last one.
Everything's plain sailing these days.
Well, I'd imagine with TV, the talented people are drifting to TV because you have more control over what you're doing, and
No,
there's
you've more
less things
control
that
over
could
you doing.
go
You have more
wrong.
time.
More
You have
time,
more time
everything.
to get familiar with the characters and to explore a greater degree of detail, I would say, I mean, that's certainly it. People were asking, what was the difference between True Detective and shooting a film? I said, there was no real difference. The cranes were all there. I mean, the trailers were big and the food was grand. But I had, these 8 scripts to work off. And I got to really, I felt by virtue, even before I did the first episode, by virtue of just having that much material and that much kind of character detail, I got to know that character, Ray Velcoro, pretty well.
I mean, the process is so.
That was an accent I felt pretty. I could have improvised
Rays?
all day. Yeah. Whatever was good or bad or irrelevant, I felt like I could have just.
He had that cigarette blasted larynx kind of voice, right?
Yeah. Kind of an old-fashioned lawman. Yeah. From another era.
Yeah. The process of, we had Bill Hader was here last week or actually Monday. But he's in the middle of making Barry, making 8 episodes. And the bar is so high now for these television shows that they're really like movies. Like those Thrones guys are finished. They're making their last season. They're making
6
a
movies.
9-hour movie, basically, or an 8-hour
amazing,
movie.
isn't
And
it?
it's like,
It's amazing.
it has to be at the same level
I
of.
cannot wait to see it.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's a lot of good stuff. It's a lot of good work out there for writers and filmmakers.
All right. So see Dumbo. Give us the 1-sentence sell for Dumbo.
You really have to sell Dumbo?
Yeah. No, just give you, I want to hear from him. I want his 1-sentence. I want his pitch.
See Dumbo because you want to.
Okay, great. That's perfect.
All right, man.
Colin Farrell, I hope your knee, I hope it recovers.
Thanks, pal.
Is it 100% yet?
No, another 7 or 8 months.
All right, you got it. Thanks for coming on. All right, before we go, we're gonna bring my son in to talk about all the wrestling stuff this weekend. Before we do that, I wanted to give a shout out to our YouTube channel. We got a silver button recently. Things are really heating up. We're almost at 115,000. We want more subscribers. We want you to subscribe. It makes us feel good. It makes our self-esteem higher than it should be. And all you have to do is go to YouTube, just search for The Ringer or youtube.com/ringer. Yeah, all our stuff's there. We're actually going to start steering more and more videos toward YouTube, I think. So just subscribe now. Our batting average is really high. We did the Callaway one this week. Just check it out. We might even put my son's wrestling videos up there from this weekend because he's vowing to try to do 35 finishing moves in our hotel bed on Saturday for the 35 WrestleManias. He did this when he was 8. It was adorable. I put it up on my Instagram. And he's going to do it when he's 11. It's still going to be adorable. At some point, not going to be that adorable, and we're probably almost there. But right now, still adorable. So check that out. The Ringer on YouTube. All right, let's bring in my son. All right, WrestleMania is coming this weekend. I'd be remiss if we didn't have our wrestling expert. We're on a good run with family members for me. My mom was on last week, which was a critically acclaimed performance. She said, Kyle, she'll come on again for the 1,000th episode.
Oh my God.
So we're 500 away from my mom's next
Everybody
appearance.
keep listening.
Yeah.
So we can
just
make it
keep listening. We want to make it to the 500. In the meantime, my son, Ben, age 11, the biggest wrestling fan I know. We are going to be at WrestleMania this weekend. He would not be denied.
Yes, we are.
You badgered me. You ruined my life over and over again until I promised to take you. I have to take time off from work. It's going to screw up podcasts. So you might not get podcasts until Tuesday next week. It's Ben's fault. So apologize to America.
It's worth it.
Okay. Your 3 favorite matches. Give us the 3 things you're looking forward to
All
the
right.
most.
For TakeOver, it's going to be
Oh, yeah. So we got Friday Night TakeOver in Brooklyn. We're going to that too.
Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano.
Okay. Who are you rooting for, and who's going to win?
Adam Cole.
You're rooting for Adam Cole. Who's going to win?
No, I'm not rooting for Adam Cole. I'm rooting for Johnny Gargano, but Adam Cole's going to win.
Adam Cole's going to win, but you're going to be upset, is what you're telling me.
Not really, because I know the outcome. Tommaso Ciampa's going to come back and make Johnny Gargano lose.
How do you know this? You're
Because
just guessing?
I'm a great predictor.
Okay. So that's going to happen. What else? What else are we looking for NXT?
Matt Riddle versus the Velveteen Dream.
Oh, you love Velveteen Dream. He's only 23.
23.
You think he's going to be a WWE champ someday?
Easily.
He's your dude.
Yeah. And rumor says that he's going to be in the Andre Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Rumor?
Yeah.
You read that on the internet?
Yes.
Okay. WrestleMania 34?
Yes. No, 35.
35. Wow, 35. Can't believe it. So what are you looking forward to WrestleMania?
The whole women's match.
The three-way.
Yeah.
Charlotte, Ronda Rousey,
and
Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch all the way.
Becky Lynch is winning.
No, Charlotte is.
You think Charlotte's going to win?
Charlotte's going to be the longest reigning WWE women's champion.
That's how this is going to play out.
Yes.
And you're ready to say goodbye to Ronda Rousey.
Yes, I hate Ronda Rousey.
Well, why? What did she do?
She's evil. She slapped
evil?
the security guards.
Yeah.
Her husband was in Raw, and her husband got kicked out.
Yeah.
Because he hit a security.
Oh my
guard.
God. And you think this is her last match potentially?
Yes.
And then Becky Lynch, you met.
Yes.
Last October. You
I was
you were kind of blushing when you met her. It seemed like you were a little sweet for her.
She is a god.
Yeah. That's your favorite.
But I was really mad when I didn't get to see her compete at Survivor Series.
Oh yeah, because she had her broken nose from what's her name? Nia punched her in the nose, broke her nose.
She's like, oh, I'm getting bullied. You bullied her.
Yeah.
You ruined my Survivor Series.
Yeah, you broke her nose. Nobody cares if you got bullied, Nia. Maybe you shouldn't have broken Becky Lynch's nose.
Yeah, you frickin'
jerk. What else are we looking forward to?
Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston.
Oh yeah, big Kofi Kingston comeback.
Yeah.
He was basically buried, right?
Do you want to know what's happening?
Just give us the quick thing.
At WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan had to fight in all the matches in order to go to the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Kofi. He got screwed over in the gauntlet match. But then the New Day in their tag team gauntlet match, they won, and now Kofi Kingston's going to WrestleMania.
Wow. And the crowd's into this.
Yes, we love Kofi.
And then Roman Reigns, dramatic comeback from leukemia, and the crowd was against him, and then he got sick, and now he's the most popular wrestler.
Drew McIntyre is going to lose. To
Roman Reigns.
Yes.
And you're ready to really, really root for Roman Reigns. What a comeback story by him.
What a comeback.
People love him now. It's so funny.
Yes.
The Shield, are they going to stay together through this, or is something bad going to happen?
Right. At the main event, not the main event, but the second match to the main event.
Yeah, the preliminary main event.
Is Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
And after Seth Rollins wins, which will probably happen, Roman Reigns is going to spear him.
Going to spear Seth Rollins? You think they're going to turn on each other? Wait, you think Seth Rollins is going to beat Brock Lesnar?
Yes.
Why?
Because Dean Ambrose is going to distract Brock Lesnar.
How do you know all this?
Because I'm a predictor and I watch YouTube.
Okay, you watch a lot of YouTube. Great. What's going to be the worst match? Which match are we not looking forward to? Kurt Angle?
Oh, no. Shit.
Da-na-na.
That match sucks. It's going to be the worst match. No one likes Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
You should have retired. You should have retired Kurt Angle after your broken neck.
Yeah.
You look like a turtle. You shouldn't be wrestling.
All good points. I can't really.
You shouldn't be
go against any of
wrestling.
those. Is your dude Ricochet going to be in WrestleMania?
No, but he is fighting he's fighting against the War Raiders with his tag team partner Aleister Black.
This is great. You're not bringing a sign.
No.
You're wearing. What are you wearing on Friday? You're wearing
I'm wearing
NXT outfit.
The NXT hat I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
And my NXT roster shirt, my black pants, and my black shoes.
And when are you going to wear Sunday at WrestleMania?
My Lucky Undertaker shirt.
Do we see the Undertaker on Sunday?
Yes.
Is he going to be wheeled out in a wheelchair to wrestle? Is he going to have a walker?
No. Yes.
Who moves better at this point, him or me?
You.
Well, I think we'll see him though.
The dead
He's
man.
always in there. The dead man always comes
The
back.
dead man will be dead soon.
The dead man. Come on.
And Shane McMahon is
The dead
gonna.
man's going to live forever. He's eternal.
No, but Shane
The dead
McMahon.
man's wrestling career is going to be dead soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Shane McMahon is gonna have to have another retirement speech.
Is Shane going to go through a table from 25 feet?
Oh yeah, like always.
Who's he wrestling?
The Miz? Let's go, Miz.
Yeah, the Miz.
Shane McMahon's a jerk. He turned on the Miz
Yeah, why did he do that?
Fastlane, and he hit the Miz's father.
It's unbelievable. If somebody hit me, you'd kick their ass.
Yes.
All right, so the champions coming out of this are going to be Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte Flair.
Who's going to be the WWE Universal Champ? Seth Rollins? So you think Lesnar loses the title?
Yeah.
Wow.
Easy.
And then what's the other one we care about?
Kofi.
But is that a title at stake?
Yes.
Oh.
Daniel Bryan.
Let's see. I'll be at the
He'll be at the hot dog.
I'll be at the hot dog stand title because that's where I'm going to be during that match. All right. Well, this all sounds great, Ben.
Yeah.
How many years away are you from joining the WWE? You think 12?
First, I'm gonna go to NXT.
You're going to do in Orlando.
Yeah.
How old are you going to be? You just skip college? That'll save me a lot of money on college.
No. I'm gonna get my acting.
Act? You're going to act now?
I'm gonna act because you have to act in order to wrestle.
So you can take acting lessons in Hollywood to get ready to be a wrestler.
And I've been training on my couch with my stuffed panda.
That is true. I posted some of the Instagram videos.
Wait, what?
Well, I posted a couple of you're doing these double flips. I keep telling you not to, and then you keep doing them. You're going to break your neck.
It's worth it. Panda. Rip panda.
All right. So when we went to Orlando to NXT,
My
you
life
did an
changed.
entrance.
My life changed.
You felt like your whole life fell into place.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop this. I just want you to decide before you're 18 because then instead of paying for college for you, we can just hire acting coaches and people who can teach you triple flips.
Oh, I'm so down. You can get ricocheted.
Ricochet. All right. Well, good luck with all this.
All right.
Thanks for bullying me into Nia Jax got bullied. I also got bullied into going to WrestleMania with you.
Well, screw
and now
you.
America's not going to get their podcast until Tuesday.
Well, America, you can wait.
All right.
WrestleMania
Sorry,
is
America.
important.
I'm really sorry. I apologize. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for coming
All
on.
right. Thank you.
All right, thanks to DAZN. Remember, getting set up is easy. Download the DAZN app in the Apple or Android app. Sign up by creating an account. Start watching across nearly any of your devices. DAZN. Thanks to TheRinger.com, the world's greatest website. Thanks to Hotel Tonight. They make it easy to book awesome hotels at amazing rates, like a matchmaker between top-rated hotels with unsold rooms and people who want to book those rooms. Not for last-minute bookings only. Book for tonight, tomorrow, and beyond. Perfect for planners, procrastinators, everyone in between. Find sweet deals at cool hotels you'd actually want to stay at. Go to hoteltonight.com or download the app right now. I am not sure. I'm probably not having a podcast for you until Tuesday next week. So I will see you on Tuesday. Enjoy the weekend. Oh, yeah.